The billionaire walked into the boardroom expecting to save his empire, but froze when he saw the woman behind the mahogany desk, the same maid he'd beaten in a laundry room 3 years ago. Her eyes held no recognition, no fear, just the cold calculation of someone who'd learned that survival meant forgetting your name until you could rewrite in gold. What he didn't know was that she'd been waiting for this moment, that every line of code she'd written, every investor she'd courted, every headline she'd earned had been leading to this exact confrontation. Have you ever wondered what happens when the person who tried to destroy you ends up begging for your help? Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Been betrayed by someone who should have protected you? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. This is the story of a woman who discovered that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's becoming untouchable. What would you do if your abuser needed something only you could give them? The answer to that question changed everything for Nia Washington, a girl from Mobile, Alabama, who cleaned houses just like her mama did. A girl who trusted the wrong people and paid the price with broken ribs and a shattered heart. A girl who disappeared into the night with nothing but bus fare and quiet rage. But here's what Kyle Morrison didn't understand when he cornered her in that laundry room 3 years ago. Some people break, and some people become diamonds under pressure. Nia Washington was about to become something he never saw coming. Hit that like button if you've ever had to rebuild yourself from nothing, and stay tuned because this story will change how you think about power, justice, and the price of silence. Make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell because you won't want to miss how this ends. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back to Mobile, Alabama, where a 19-year-old girl named Nia Washington was about to learn that family isn't always blood and love isn't always protection. She was about to discover that sometimes the people who hurt you most are the ones who promise to keep you safe. She cleaned other people's houses because her mother taught her that honest work was the only kind that let you sleep at night, until the day her sister invited her to live somewhere she'd never feel clean again. Nia Washington had been scrubbing toilets since she was 16. Not because she wanted to, but because her mama, Gloria, had 3 jobs and diabetes that wouldn't quit. When Gloria's legs started swelling so bad she couldn't stand for 8 hours straight, Nia dropped out of high school and picked up where her mother left off. The Montgomery family house in Mobile's historic district was Nia's regular Tuesday and Friday. Mrs. Montgomery always left $20 on the kitchen counter and pretended not to see Nia pocket the leftovers from their dinner parties. It wasn't charity, it was survival dressed up as kindness. "You're too smart for this," Mrs. Montgomery would say, watching Nia organize her medicine cabinet with the precision of a nurse. "You should go back to school." But school cost money they didn't have, and pride didn't pay medical bills. Everything changed the day Deja called. Nia's half-sister was 5 years older, light-skinned where Nia was dark, college-educated where Nia had dropped out. They shared a father who'd left them both, but Deja had landed in Dallas with a degree and a rich fiancé. "I'm getting married," Deja said over the phone, her voice bright with possibility. "Kyle wants to meet you. He said you should come live with us in Dallas. Help you get on your feet." The Dallas suburbs stretched out in perfect rows of beige and cream, each house a monument to the kind of stability Nia had only seen through windows she was paid to clean. Kyle Morrison's house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac like a crown jewel, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, and a garage bigger than the apartment Nia shared with her mother. Kyle was everything Deja had described. Tall, successful, confident. He owned 3 real estate developments and drove a BMW that cost more than Nia made in 2 years. When he shook her hand at the door, his grip lingered just a moment too long. "So you're the famous little sister," he said, his smile wide and welcoming. "Deja talks about you all the time." But there was something in his eyes that made Nia's skin crawl. A way he looked at her that felt less like family and more like assessment. Like he was calculating her worth. Have you ever moved in with family and felt like a stranger in their home? Tell me in the comments about a time you felt out of place. Deja showed her to the guest room, bigger than any bedroom Nia had ever had, with its own bathroom and a window that looked out onto a backyard with an actual pool. For the first time in her life, Nia felt like maybe things were finally looking up. Kyle's hand lingered on her shoulder as he showed her where they kept the spare towels. "Make yourself at home," he said, but something in his smile made her stomach turn. Deja beamed from the doorway, completely missing the way her fiancé's eyes followed her sister's every move. The rules started small. No friends over, no loud music, no staying out past 9. She thought he was being protective until she realized he was marking territory. It began with the thermostat. Kyle would adjust it every time Nia walked by, claiming she was always too hot or too cold. Then it was the TV remote. He'd change channels mid-show if she was watching something he didn't approve of. Small things. Controlling things. Kyle just wants us to feel like a family, Deja would say when Nia mentioned feeling uncomfortable. He's never had sisters before. Give him time. But family didn't feel like walking on eggshells. Family didn't feel like being watched every time you entered a room. The kitchen island became a battlefield of unspoken tension. Kyle's coffee cup positioned to block her view of the morning news, his presence filling the space until she felt like an intruder in her own temporary home. He'd stand too close when she was cooking, his body heat making her skin crawl. "You smell good," he'd whisper when Deja was upstairs. "What kind of perfume is that?" "It's just soap," Nia would reply, moving away, but there was nowhere to go in the narrow kitchen. The comments started subtle. "Most girls your age dress more mature," he'd say, eyeing her jeans and t-shirt. "You've got a beautiful figure. Why hide it?" When Nia mentioned it to Deja, her sister laughed it off. "He's just trying to help you feel confident." Kyle knows about fashion, but confidence wasn't supposed to feel this dirty. Kyle would find excuses to be alone with her. When Deja worked late at the boutique she managed, he'd linger in the kitchen while Nia cleaned up dinner. He'd ask about her dating life, her experience with men, questions that made her cheeks burn with embarrassment. "A pretty girl like you must have had lots of boyfriends back in Mobile," he'd say, leaning against the counter, blocking her path to the stairs. "Not really," Nia would mumble, trying to squeeze past him. "That's hard to believe. You're what, 19? Most girls your age are much more experienced." The way he said experienced made her skin crawl. Have you ever felt someone testing your boundaries little by little? Share if you've experienced someone making you uncomfortable in your own space. The worst part was how normal he acted around Deja. The perfect fiancé, bringing her flowers, opening car doors, talking about their wedding plans. It was like watching two different people inhabit the same body. Nia started staying in her room more, coming downstairs only when Deja was home. But Kyle noticed everything. He'd comment on how antisocial she was becoming, how ungrateful she seemed. "I'm just trying to make you feel welcome," he'd say with that smile that never reached his eyes. Family takes care of family. When Deja announced she was going to Houston for her bachelorette weekend, Nia's stomach dropped. "Just us this weekend," Kyle said, his goodbye kiss to Deja lasting too long while his eyes stayed fixed on Nia. "We can finally get to know each other better." The way he looked at her made every alarm bell in her head start ringing. She thought the worst thing about living with them was feeling invisible, until the night Kyle made it clear he saw every inch of her. Friday night arrived like a death sentence. Deja left for Houston with hugs and promises to bring back funny stories, completely oblivious to the predator she was leaving her sister alone with. "Be good to Kyle," she called from the car. "He's doing us both such a favor." The house felt different without Deja's laughter filling the corners. Bigger, colder, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Kyle's presence seemed to expand to fill every room, every hallway, every safe space Nia thought she had. He started drinking after dinner. Not drunk, just loose enough for his real personality to slip through the cracks of his perfect facade. He'd always been careful before, calculating. Now he was predatory. "Come watch a movie with me," he called from the living room. "No point in us both being lonely." "I'm tired," Nia called back, heading for the stairs. "I think I'll just go to bed. It's only 8 o'clock. His voice had an edge now. "That's rude, Nia. I'm trying to be nice to you." She paused on the first step. In his house, with nowhere else to go, rudeness felt dangerous. The movie was some action thing with too much violence and women who existed only to be rescued or killed. Kyle sat too close on the couch, his arms stretched across the back, his fingers occasionally brushing her shoulder. "You're so tense," he said during a quiet scene. "Relax. We're family now." But his hand on her shoulder didn't feel family. It felt possessive. When she excused herself to get some water, he followed her to the kitchen. The space felt smaller with him in it, his body blocking her path back to the living room. "You know," he said, leaning against the counter, "Deja worries about you. Says you don't date much. Don't have much experience with men." "I'm fine," Nia said, trying to move past him. He didn't budge. A girl your age should be exploring, having fun, learning what she likes. His eyes traveled down her body slowly, deliberately. What she wants. When someone makes you feel unsafe in your own space, every room becomes a potential trap. Have you ever felt that kind of fear? Drop a heart if you understand. "I should do some laundry," Nia said, desperate for an excuse to get away from his stare. "Good idea," Kyle said, and something in his tone made her stomach turn. "I'll help you carry the basket down." The basement laundry room had always felt safe, tucked away, private, the sound of the washer and dryer drowning out the rest of the world. Now it felt like a trap. Kyle followed her down the narrow stairs, his presence filling the small space. She could hear him breathing behind her as she loaded clothes into the washer, could feel his eyes on her back. "You know what I think?" he said, and his voice was different now. "Hungrier. I think you've been leading me on, walking around here in those tight clothes, bending over in front of me." The laundry room door clicked shut behind him, and Nia realized she'd made a terrible mistake coming downstairs alone. Kyle's smile was gone now, replaced by something that made her blood freeze. "Deja doesn't have to know everything that happens while she's away," he said, stepping closer. She fought back the only way she knew how, with words, with strength, with the dignity her mother taught her. "But some men don't understand no until it comes with consequences. Get away from me." Nia's voice was steady, stronger than she felt. Her mother had taught her never to show fear to a predator. "Deja's going to be back tomorrow." Kyle laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Deja sees what she wants to see. She thinks you're this innocent little girl who needs protecting." He stepped closer, trapping her between the washer and the concrete wall. "But I see what you really are." "You don't see anything," Nia said, her hands pressed against the cold metal behind her. "You don't know me. I know you came here with nothing. I know you need somewhere to live. I know you can't afford to make me angry." His hand reached out to touch her face, and she jerked away. "Don't touch me." "Or what?" His voice was soft now, dangerous. "You'll leave? Go back to cleaning toilets and mobile? Leave your sick mama to figure it out on her own?" The threat hit her like a physical blow. He'd done his research, knew exactly where it would hurt most. "I'm not asking for much," Kyle continued, his hand moving to her shoulder. "Just a little appreciation, a little gratitude for everything I've done for your family." When she tried to duck under his arm, he grabbed her wrist, his grip tight enough to bruise. "Let go of me." She pulled against his grip, but he was stronger, bigger. "Stop fighting me, Nia. You know you want this. The way you look at me when you think nobody's watching." "I'll look at you like you're disgusting," she spat. "Because you are." His face changed then, the mask slipping completely. The rage that flashed in his eyes was pure and terrifying. "You ungrateful little bitch," he snarled. "I give you everything. A roof, food, a future, and this is how you repay me?" She tried to scream, but his hand covered her mouth before any sound could escape. The taste of his palm was salty, metallic with the ring he wore. She bit down hard, and he yanked his hand away with a curse. "Help!" she screamed, but there was nobody to hear. The nearest neighbors were 100 yards away, and the basement walls were thick. Kyle's backhand sent her head snapping against the dryer door. Stars exploded behind her eyes, and she tasted blood. "Nobody's coming to save you," he said, grabbing her shoulders and slamming her back against the machine. "Nobody even knows you're here." The sound of her ribs cracking was softer than she expected, like twigs snapping underfoot in a quiet forest. The metallic taste of blood filled her mouth as the dryer door pressed into her spine. But even as pain shot through her chest, even as her vision blurred, Nia Washington did something Kyle Morrison never expected. She fought back. Her knee connected with his groin, and his grip loosened just enough for her to twist away. She made it 3 steps toward the stairs before he caught her again, his fist connecting with her jaw, sending her sprawling across the concrete floor. Surviving assault isn't about being strong enough to fight. It's about being strong enough to keep breathing. If this hits close to home, know that speaking up takes more courage than silence. As Kyle straightened his shirt and walked away like nothing happened, Nia curled on the laundry room floor, blood pooling beneath her cheek. The worst part wasn't the pain. It was knowing that when Deja came home, she'd have to choose between believing her sister or protecting her future. She waited 3 days for her sister to notice the bruises, to ask the right questions, to choose family over a man. The text message that came instead shattered more than her ribs ever could. Deja returned from Houston glowing with wedding plans and bachelorette party stories. She burst through the front door Sunday evening with bags full of gifts and a phone full of photos, completely oblivious to the way Nia flinched when she hugged her. "You should have seen the hotel," Deja gushed, pulling out a tiny bottle of shampoo like it was a trophy. "And the restaurants. Kyle's going to love the honeymoon pictures I showed the girls." Nia sat on the couch, her ribs screaming with every breath, watching her sister float around the living room like nothing had changed. The bruises on her jaw were hidden under makeup she'd bought at CVS, but the ones on her torso were angry, purple reminders of Friday night. Kyle played his part perfectly. The concerned fiancé asking about the trip, the loving partner helping Deja unpack. When he looked at Nia, his eyes held a warning that made her stomach turn. "How was your weekend, Nia?" Deja asked, finally noticing her sister hadn't said much. "Did you and Kyle bond?" The question hung in the air like poison. Nia could feel Kyle watching her, waiting to see what she would do. "It was fine," Nia managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "You look tired," Deja said, finally really looking at her sister. "Are you feeling okay?" This was it, the moment Nia had been waiting for. The chance to tell the truth, to trust that blood was thicker than diamond rings and wedding plans. "Deja, I need to talk to you," Nia said, her voice shaking. "Alone." Something flickered in Kyle's eyes, but he smiled that perfect smile. "I'll give you sister some privacy. I've got some calls to make anyway." He kissed Deja's forehead before leaving, but not before giving Nia a look that promised consequences if she said the wrong thing. The words came out broken, halting. Nia told her sister about the comments, the touching, the way Kyle looked at her when Deja wasn't around. She told her about Friday night, about the laundry room, about the way he'd hurt her. Deja's face went through a dozen emotions: confusion, disbelief, anger. But not the kind of anger Nia had hoped for. "Nia, that's crazy," Deja said, shaking her head. "Kyle would never. He's not like that." "Look at my ribs," Nia said, lifting her shirt to show the purple bruises. "Look what he did to me." But Deja looked away. "You could have gotten those anywhere. You're clumsy. You've always been clumsy." "Deja, please." Nia grabbed her sister's hands. "I'm telling you the truth. He hurt me." The engagement ring caught the kitchen light as Deja typed, each diamond reflecting a different version of the same lie. That some truths are too expensive to acknowledge. When the people who should protect you choose someone else's comfort over your truth, it breaks something deeper than bones. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? "I think you're jealous," Deja said finally, pulling her hand away. "Jealous that I found someone good, someone who takes care of me. Maybe you thought Kyle would be interested in you instead." The words hit Nia like another fist to the face. "Kyle told me you might try something like this," Deja continued, her voice getting colder. "He said you've been acting strange, trying to get his attention." Nia felt the world shifting under her feet. "He told you what?" "He was trying to protect you, to protect your reputation. But maybe he was wrong. Maybe you're exactly what people say you are." The text came that night while Nia was packing the few things she owned. 3 words that ended everything. Stay away. Forever. The Greyhound bus ticket in her hand read Charlotte, North Carolina. a city she'd picked by closing her eyes and pointing at a map. As the bus pulled away from Dallas, Nia pressed her face to the window and made a promise. She would never be that powerless again. She arrived in Charlotte with $43, a fake name, and the kind of quiet rage that either destroys you or rebuilds you into something unbreakable. The bus station at 3 a.m. was full of people running from something. Runaways, addicts, women with black eyes, and children who asked too many questions. Nia blended in perfectly with her own bruises and the hollow look of someone who'd lost everything that mattered. She'd picked the name Maya Johnson from a gravestone she'd seen in Mobile, someone who'd died young, someone who'd never get the chance to disappoint anyone. Nia Washington was dead now, buried in a laundry room in Dallas along with the girl who believed family meant protection. The Moonlight Diner glowed like a beacon on Independence Boulevard, its neon sign buzzing with the promise of minimum wage and anonymity, exactly what she needed. The owner, a tired-looking woman named Rosa, hired her on the spot after she lied about having restaurant experience. "You look hungry," Rosa said, sliding a plate of eggs across the counter. "Eat first, then we'll talk about shifts." The motel room Nia rented by the week smelled like cigarettes and broken dreams, but it was hers. No one else had keys. No one else could walk in whenever they wanted. The lock worked, and that was all that mattered. Working the overnight shift at the diner meant dealing with drunks, insomniacs, and people whose lives had gone sideways. Nia served coffee to truck drivers heading to Florida, listened to nurses complain about 12-hour shifts, and learned to read the difference between customers who tipped and those who didn't. Marcus Williams was different. He came in every Tuesday and Thursday around 2 a.m., ordered black coffee and whatever Rosa had left over from dinner. He was quiet, polite, and never tried to touch her when she refilled his cup. "You're new," he said one night, not as a question, but as a statement. "New enough," Nia replied, wiping down the counter between them. Running from something or running to something? The question caught her off guard. Most customers didn't care about her story beyond whether she remembered how they liked their eggs. "Does it matter?" she asked. Marcus smiled, and it was the first genuine smile she'd seen since leaving Mobile. "Depends on whether you plan to keep running. Starting over in a new city where nobody knows your name. Terrifying or liberating? Tell me about a time you had to reinvent yourself from scratch." He left his laptop open when he went to the bathroom, and Nia couldn't help but notice the coding tutorial on his screen. Lines of text that looked like a foreign language, but somehow made sense in a way that cleaning houses never had. "You interested in computers?" Marcus asked when he came back, catching her staring. "I don't know anything about them," Nia admitted. "That's what I said 6 months ago," Marcus said, closing the laptop. "Now I build websites for small businesses. Make more in a week than I used to make in a month." The idea planted itself in her mind like a seed. Something she could learn, something she could control, something that didn't require anyone else's permission or approval. The customer at table 6 left his laptop open while he went to the bathroom, and Nia couldn't help but notice the coding tutorial on his screen. For the first time in months, something besides survival sparked her interest. She discovered that coding was like cleaning. You took something messy and broken and made it work perfectly, except with code. She was building something that could change the world. The Charlotte Public Library became her second home. Every morning after her shift ended at 7 a.m., Nia would walk the 12 blocks to the building on North Tryon Street and claim a computer in the back corner where nobody bothered her. The first time she opened a coding tutorial, the screen might as well have been written in ancient Greek. But Marcus had been right. It was just another language, and Nia had always been good at learning things people said she was too dumb to understand. HTML was like building blocks. CSS was like paint and wallpaper. JavaScript was like electricity, making everything come alive. She started with simple websites. Nothing fancy, just text and colors and boxes that moved when you clicked them. "You're here every day," said Janet, the librarian who worked the morning shift. "What are you building?" "I don't know yet," Nia admitted. "Something better than what I had before." The public library became her second home. Fluorescent lights humming overhead as her fingers flew across keyboards that had seen 1,000 dreams typed into existence. She taught herself HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Languages that made more sense than the one Kyle spoke. Languages that responded to logic instead of violence. Her relationship with Marcus grew slowly, carefully. He'd started staying later at the diner, timing his visits to coincide with her breaks. They'd sit in the back booth and talk about code, about Charlotte, about anything except where they'd come from. "You're different," he said one night, watching her doodle website layouts on napkins. "Most people who work the overnight shift are killing time. You're building something." "Maybe," Nia said, not ready to admit how much hope she was investing in lines of code. The first time he kissed her, it was outside the library at sunrise. She'd been showing him a website she'd built. Nothing special, just a page about coffee recipes, when he leaned over to get a better look at her laptop screen. "This is really good," he said, and when she turned to thank him, his lips were right there. The kiss was soft, tentative, nothing like Kyle's hungry demands. When Marcus pulled back, his eyes were questioning, asking permission. "Is this okay?" he whispered. For the first time since Dallas, Nia felt like she had a choice. "Yes," she said, and meant it. Learning a new skill that could change her life. What would you choose if you had to start over? Share your dream career pivot in the comments. It took things slow. Marcus had his own wounds. An ex-wife who'd cleaned out their bank account. A job he'd lost to layoffs. Reasons he understood why someone might want to start over with a new name and new city. 3 months after her first coding tutorial, Nia built her first real website. A page for Rosa's Diner with photos of the food and an online menu. It wasn't much, but it was hers. "People are going to see this?" Rosa asked, staring at the screen in wonder. "All over the world," Nia said. "If they want to." That night, watching strangers on the internet look at something she'd created, Nia felt a spark of an idea that made her hands shake with possibility. The local news story about workplace harassment in corporate America gave her the final piece of the puzzle. What if she could build something that made sure no woman ever had to suffer in silence again? The app started as revenge therapy, a way to channel her rage into something useful. She never expected it to become the bridge between who she was and who she was becoming. Nia's motel room transformed into mission control. 2 borrowed laptops from the library's equipment loan program. Notebooks filled with sketches and code snippets. Empty energy drink cans building skylines across the faded carpet. The idea was simple. An app where women could report workplace harassment anonymously. No names, no addresses, just patterns. If multiple reports came from the same company, the app would flag it. If someone wanted to find others who'd experienced similar situations, they could connect safely. She called it Lighthouse, a beacon for people lost in the dark. Building it was harder than anything she'd ever done. The code that had seemed logical in tutorials became a nightmare when she tried to make it secure, private, bulletproof. She spent weeks learning about encryption, about databases, about how to protect people's secrets from the same kind of predators who'd hurt her. Marcus found her crying over her laptop one Tuesday morning, frustrated because she couldn't figure out how to make the messaging system work. "Hey," he said, sliding into the booth across from her. "What's wrong?" For the first time since she'd left Dallas, Nia told someone the truth. Not all of it. Not Kyle's name or Deja's betrayal, but enough. About working as a maid, about being hurt by someone who was supposed to protect her, about why she'd had to start over. Marcus listened without judgment, without trying to fix anything. When she finished, he reached across the table and took her hand. "You survived," he said simply, "and now you're trying to help other people survive too. That's not revenge therapy, that's heroic." The word heroic felt foreign in her mouth, but when Marcus said it, it sounded possible. Their relationship deepened after that conversation. Not just physically, though the first time they made love in his apartment, Nia cried afterward. Not from sadness, but from the relief of being touched with gentleness instead of anger. "Are you okay?" Marcus asked, stroking her hair. "I'm perfect," she whispered, and for the first time in years, she meant it. When you turn your pain into purpose, it stops defining you and starts empowering others. What would you create if you could solve the problem that hurt you most? The breakthrough came at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. Nia finally cracked the encryption problem that had been driving her crazy for weeks. The messaging system worked. The reporting function was secure. The app was ready for testing. She built a simple website to go with it. Nothing fancy, just information about workplace rights and resources for people who'd been harassed. Then she submitted it to the local app stores and held her breath. The first download came 3 hours later, then 5 more. By the end of the week, Lighthouse had been downloaded 47 times. The first report came on a Thursday. A woman in Raleigh whose boss had been making inappropriate comments. Then another from Greensboro. Then one from Charlotte that made Nia's blood run cold because it sounded exactly like her own story. She wasn't alone. She'd never been alone. The NBC Charlotte producer's email was brief but life-changing. We'd like to feature your app on our morning show. Can you be here Thursday at 6 a.m.? Nia's hands trembled as she realized Thursday was exactly 3 years since she'd left Alice. The anniversary of the worst day of her life was about to become the best. 3 months after the NBC segment aired, Nia's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. The Lighthouse app had exploded overnight, downloaded by over 2 million women across the country. Her story became a movement, but fame came with a price she never expected. "Maya, you need to see this," Marcus said, holding up his phone with a worried expression. The comments section under her latest interview was flooded with both support and hate. Some called her a hero. Others questioned why she waited so long to speak up. But the message that made her blood run cold came from a blocked number. "I know who you really are, Nia Washington. We need to talk." She deleted it immediately, but the damage was done. Someone from her past had found her. In bed that night, Marcus traced circles on her bare shoulder as she trembled against him. "Whatever happens, I'm here," he whispered, his lips brushing her neck with gentle promises. The next morning brought another shock. Her lawyer called with news that would change everything. "Venture Capital Group wants to invest $50 million in your company. But there's a catch. They want to meet the CEO in person next week." Nia stared at the skyline of Charlotte, the city that had saved her life. She'd built an empire from nothing, but success meant exposure. And exposure meant the ghosts of Mobile, Alabama, might finally catch up with her. Have you ever been forced to choose between safety and success? Between hiding who you were and showing the world who you'd become? Share your thoughts below. Your story might inspire someone else to keep fighting. The meeting was set for Thursday. She had 6 days to prepare for either the biggest opportunity of her life or the moment her carefully constructed new identity would crumble. What she didn't know was that Kyle had already booked his flight to Charlotte. Nia spent 3 days preparing for the venture capital meeting, but her mind kept drifting to that anonymous text. She hired a private investigator to trace the number, but the results only deepened her anxiety. The phone was registered to a shell company in Dallas, Texas. Her assistant knocked on her office door. "Ms. Johnson, there's someone here to see you. Says he's an old friend from Alabama." Nia's heart stopped. Through the glass partition, she saw a familiar figure in the waiting area. Not Kyle, but James, her childhood neighbor who used to walk her to school. He looked older, wearing a worn jacket and nervous expression. "Nia," he said when she approached, "I wasn't sure if you'd remember me. How did you find me?" She asked, leading him to a private conference room. "Your sister's been looking for you for 2 years. After Kyle," he paused, choosing his words carefully. After what happened, she realized she made a mistake. A big one. James pulled out his phone, showing her a news article from the Mobile Register. Kyle Brennan had been arrested for assault charges from 3 different women. Deja had filed for divorce and was testifying against him. "She knows what really happened that night," James continued. "She wants to apologize, but more than that, she's scared. Kyle got out on bail last week, and his lawyer mentioned your name. He knows about the app, about your success. Deja thinks he might try to hurt you." The room fell silent except for the hum of air conditioning. Nia's hands shook as she processed the information. Her sister finally believed her, but might be too late. "There's something else," James said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Kyle's been telling people he's going to Charlotte for a business meeting. He's planning something, Nia, something that involves you." That evening, Marcus found her in their apartment, staring at old photos from her childhood. "Talk to me," he said, sitting beside her on the couch. His hand found hers, warm and steady. What if I'm not strong enough? She whispered. What if seeing him again breaks me? Marcus lifted her chin, forcing her to meet his eyes. The woman who built a multi-million-dollar company from nothing? The woman who gives voice to millions of survivors? That woman is stronger than any man who ever tried to hurt her. His kiss was soft at first, then deeper as she melted into his arms. They made love that night with desperate intensity, as if their bodies could shield her from the storm approaching. Do you believe confronting your past is necessary for true healing? Or are some battles better left unfought? Let us know in the comments. We read every single one. The next morning, Nia made a decision that would define the rest of her life. She wouldn't run anymore. She wouldn't hide. If Kyle wanted a war, she'd give him one. But this time, she'd be fighting from a position of power. She picked up her phone and called her lawyer. I need you to prepare something for me, and I need it done before Thursday. Thursday morning arrived with Charlotte's typical spring humidity, but inside the gleaming conference room of Morrison & Associates, the air was electric with tension. Nia wore her power suit like armor, midnight blue with sharp shoulders that commanded respect. The venture capital team had already arrived. 3 men in expensive suits who'd flown down from New York specifically to meet the mysterious CEO of Lighthouse Technologies. They had no idea they were about to witness something far more dramatic than a business pitch. Before we begin, Nia announced, her voice steady despite the chaos in her chest. I need to address something personal that might affect this partnership. The lead investor, Mr. Hartman, raised an eyebrow. Ms. Johnson, we're here to discuss your app's market potential, not. Actually, a familiar voice interrupted from the doorway. I think you'll find this very relevant to your investment decision. Kyle Brennan walked into the room with the same confidence he'd always carried, but Nia noticed the slight tremor in his hands, the way his eyes darted around before settling on her face. He looked older, harder, with lines around his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and legal troubles. Gentlemen, Kyle said, addressing the investors while ignoring Nia completely. I'm Kyle Brennan, CEO of Brennan Development Group. I believe there are some things you should know about this woman before you write that check. Nia's lawyer, Patricia Williams, stepped forward. Mr. Brennan, you're trespassing on private property. Security has been called. Oh, I don't think that's necessary. Kyle smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I'm here as a concerned citizen, warning these good men about the fraud they're about to fund. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Marcus, who'd been waiting in the hallway as planned, entered and positioned himself near the door. His presence gave Nia strength, but she kept her expression neutral. You see, Kyle continued, his voice taking on that familiar condescending tone. The woman you know as Maya Johnson is actually Nia Washington from Mobile, Alabama. She used to work as a maid in my home, and let me tell you, she was always causing drama, making up stories. Stories like the police report filed in Dallas County 3 weeks ago. Nia interrupted, her voice cutting through his lies like a blade. The one where 3 women testified under oath about your pattern of assault. Kyle's face flushed red. That's completely different. Those women are lying, just like you lied about. About what, Kyle? Nia stood up, her full height making her an imposing figure in the room. About the night you cornered me in the laundry room? About the bruises you left on my ribs? About my sister choosing your version of events over her own blood? The investors shifted uncomfortably, suddenly understanding they were witnessing something far beyond a business dispute. Mr. Hartman cleared his throat. Perhaps we should reschedule this meeting. No, Nia said firmly. This is exactly the conversation we need to have. Because this man represents everything my app was designed to fight against. Powerful men who use their position to hurt women, then discredit them when they speak up. Kyle's composure cracked. You little. Careful. Marcus warned, stepping closer. There are witnesses this time. The room fell silent except for the sound of Kyle's heavy breathing. Nia could see the moment he realized his mistake. Walking in her territory, surrounded by her allies, with no power over her anymore. Have you ever faced someone who hurt you after you'd grown stronger? Sometimes the real victory isn't revenge. It's showing them you survived despite their efforts to break you. What happened next would redefine justice for everyone in that room. Kyle's hands clenched into fists as he realized his tactical error. This wasn't the same broken girl he'd left bleeding on a laundry room floor. This was a woman who owned the room, commanded respect, and had built an empire from the ashes of his abuse. You want to talk about fraud? Nia continued, her voice gaining strength with each word. Let's discuss how you've been using shell companies to hide assets from your divorce settlement, or how you try to bribe two of your accusers to drop their charges. Kyle's lawyer, who'd been standing quietly in the corner, stepped forward. My client denies all allegations. Does he deny this? Patricia Williams activated the conference room's video screen, revealing a series of financial documents. Bank transfers showing payments to women who later withdrew their police reports. Email chains discussing reputation management. Phone records placing your client in Charlotte yesterday, despite a restraining order requiring him to stay in Texas. The color drained from Kyle's face. How did you get this information legally? Nia smiled, but there was steel behind it. I learned something important these past 3 years. When you have money and connections, the truth has a way of surfacing. And when you help enough people find their voice, they're willing to help you find yours. Mr. Hartman leaned forward, suddenly very interested. Ms. Johnson, are you saying your app uncovered criminal activity? I'm saying my app works exactly as designed. Women report incidents through our platform, and when patterns emerge, we connect them with legal resources and support networks. Kyle's victims found each other through Lighthouse. They found their courage through our community. Kyle lunged forward, but Marcus was faster, intercepting him before he could reach Nia's chair. Don't make this worse for yourself, Marcus warned, his calm tone more threatening than any shout. You destroyed my life, Kyle shouted, struggling against Marcus's grip. I lost everything because of your lies. No, Nia said, standing slowly. You lost everything because of your choices. I just made sure the women you hurt had a safe place to tell their truth. The door opened, and 2 Charlotte police officers entered, followed by Detective Rodriguez from the Domestic Violence Unit. Mr. Brennan, you're under arrest for violating a protective order and criminal trespass. As they read him his rights, Kyle's eyes locked with Nia's one final time. The rage was still there, but underneath it was something she'd never seen before. Fear. He was finally afraid of her. This isn't over, he snarled as they led him away. Yes, it is, Nia replied quietly. It's been over since the moment I decided to stop running. The room remained silent for several minutes after Kyle's arrest. The investors exchanged glances, clearly processing what they'd witnessed. Finally, Mr. Hartman spoke. Ms. Johnson, that was extraordinary. Your platform doesn't just connect victims, it empowers them to seek justice. That's the point, Nia said, settling back in her chair with renewed confidence. We don't just want to document abuse. We want to stop it. Patricia Williams placed a folder on the table. Gentlemen, you'll find everything you need for due diligence in here. But I think you just witnessed the most important testimony about this company's mission and leadership. Marcus squeezed Nia's shoulder, his touch warm and proud. She could feel the weight of years lifting from her shoulders. The scared girl from Mobile was gone, replaced by someone who could stand in her own power and protect others from the darkness she'd survived. What would you do if given the chance to confront someone who hurt you? Would you choose revenge or justice? Your answer might surprise you. Share it below, and let's start a conversation about healing and accountability. The investors left with signed contracts and 50 million reasons to believe in her vision. But the real victory wasn't financial, it was freedom. 6 months later, Nia stood in the courtroom as the judge delivered Kyle's sentence. 8 years in prison for multiple counts of assault, harassment, and violating protective orders. The evidence from Lighthouse Technologies had been instrumental in building the case against him. But the moment that truly healed her heart came afterward, in the courthouse hallway, when a familiar figure approached with tears streaming down her face. Nia. Deja's voice was barely a whisper. Can you ever forgive me? Her sister looked smaller somehow, worn down by months of divorce proceedings and the weight of her own guilt. Dark circles under her eyes told the story of sleepless nights, probably spent thinking about the choice she'd made that destroyed their relationship. I should have believed you, Deja continued, her voice breaking. I should have protected you instead of protecting him. I was so afraid of admitting I'd chosen the wrong man that I threw away the only family I had left. Nia studied her sister's face, searching for traces of the woman who'd texted her to stay away 3 years ago. What she found instead was genuine remorse and something that looked like the sister she'd once known. I don't need an apology, Nia said finally. I needed you to believe me when it mattered. But that doesn't mean we can't start over. They embraced in the hallway, two sisters finding their way back to each other after years of pain and misunderstanding. Marcus watched from a respectful distance, his hand resting protectively on the small of Nia's back. Later that evening, at the celebration dinner with her team, Nia received a call that would change everything again. The voice on the other end was professional but excited. Ms. Johnson, this is Rebecca Martinez from CNN. We'd like to offer you a book deal and documentary opportunity. Your story, from survivor to CEO, could inspire millions of women worldwide. Nia looked around the restaurant at the faces of people who'd become her chosen family. Marcus, whose love had taught her to trust again. Patricia, whose legal expertise had helped her find justice. Her development team, who'd turned her pain into purpose. And now Deja, who was learning to rebuild their bond from the ground up. I'm interested, she said into the phone, but only if I can tell the whole truth. The ugly parts and the beautiful ones. The mistakes and the victories. After hanging up, Marcus reached across the table to take her hand. Are you ready for that level of exposure? Having your story become public property, Nia considered the question carefully. 3 years ago, she would have said no. She would have chosen safety over vulnerability, anonymity over advocacy. But the woman she'd become understood something the broken girl from Mobile never could. Her story wasn't just hers anymore. Every day, women message me through the app, she said. They tell me about their Kyle, the boss who corners them in supply closets, the partner who uses his fists instead of words, the family member who chooses the abuser over the victim. If sharing my story helps even one of them find their voice sooner, then yes, I'm ready. Deja squeezed her other hand. I want to be part of it. My story too. What it's like to be the sister who failed, who chose wrong, who had to learn to forgive herself. Do you believe sharing our most painful experiences can become our greatest source of strength? Have you ever had to choose between privacy and purpose? Let us know in the comments. Your perspective matters to this community. The book would be titled When Silence Becomes Power, and it would change lives around the world. 2 years after the trial, Nia returned to Mobile, Alabama for the first time since fleeing on that Greyhound bus. But this time, she wasn't running. She was coming home as the keynote speaker for the Alabama Women's Business Conference. The auditorium was packed with over 2,000 women, many of whom had read her book or used the Lighthouse app to escape their own situations. As she walked onto the stage, Nia spotted familiar faces in the crowd. Mrs. Henderson, her high school counselor who'd encouraged her to dream bigger. Angela, a girl from her old neighborhood who'd started her own catering business. And in the front row, beaming with pride. But the face that made her pause was in the third row. A young woman who looked exactly like Nia had at 19, with the same haunted expression she'd worn during her darkest days. My name is Nia Washington, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the space. 5 years ago, I was cleaning houses in this city, believing that was all I deserved. Today, I'm here to tell you that your circumstances don't define your future. Your choices do. She shared her story with unflinching honesty. The abuse, the betrayal, the lonely nights in Charlotte when she wondered if she'd ever feel whole again. But she also talked about the small victories, learning her first line of code, making her first dollar from freelance work, the moment she realized she was no longer afraid. The app that changed my life started with a simple question. What if women didn't have to suffer in silence? What if we could turn our pain into power, our trauma into triumph? After her speech, the young woman from the third row approached her backstage. Ms. Washington, I am Keisha. I work for a family here in Mobile, and the husband, her voice trailed off, but her eyes said everything. Nia's heart clenched with recognition. How can I help? I don't know where to start. I don't have money for a lawyer, and his wife doesn't believe me. I feel trapped. Nia pulled out her phone and opened the Lighthouse app. Start here. Document everything, dates, times, witnesses if there are any. Our platform will connect you with local resources, legal aid, and women who've been through similar situations. She also handed Keisha a business card for Patricia Williams, who now ran a pro bono legal clinic funded by Lighthouse Technologies. Tell her I sent you. And remember, you're not just a survivor. You're a warrior who hasn't realized her own strength yet. That night, Marcus found her on the hotel balcony, looking out over the Mobile skyline. How does it feel to be back? Different, she said, leaning into his embrace. I used to see this city as the place where I was broken. Now I see it as the place where my journey began. He kissed the top of her head. Our journey, because wherever you go, I go. Can returning to where your story began help you see how far you've traveled? Sometimes facing our past gives us the power to change someone else's future. Share your thoughts below. The scared girl who left Mobile on a bus was gone. The woman who returned was ready to lift others up. 1 year later, Nia stood in the nursery of their Charlotte home, painting the walls a soft yellow while Marcus assembled a crib nearby. The positive pregnancy test had been a surprise, but a welcome one. After everything they'd been through, the idea of creating new life felt like the ultimate victory over those who tried to destroy her. What do you think about hope for a girl? Marcus asked, looking up from the instruction manual. Perfect, Nia smiled, her hand resting on her growing belly. And Gabriel for a boy, it means God is my strength. Her phone buzzed with a notification from the Lighthouse app. Another success story. A woman in Seattle had used the platform to escape an abusive marriage and was now enrolled in nursing school. These messages arrived daily now, from all 50 states and 12 countries where the app had launched. The real surprise came that afternoon when Deja arrived for their weekly coffee date, glowing with her own news. I'm engaged, she announced, showing off a modest but beautiful ring. To James, you remember, our old neighbor from Mobile. Nia nearly dropped her mug. James? The one who brought me news about Kyle. He's been helping me heal, just like Marcus helped you. Sometimes love finds us when we're ready to receive it properly. Deja's eyes sparkled with genuine happiness for the first time in years. And I want you to be my maid of honor. Only if you promise never to use the word maid around me again, Nia laughed, pulling her sister into a hug. That evening, as they prepared for bed, Marcus wrapped his arms around Nia from behind, his hands settling over her stomach. I love watching you build your empire, he murmured against her neck. But I love watching you build our family even more. She turned in his arms, studying the face that had become her safe harbor. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't met? No, he said firmly, because we were always meant to find each other. Your strength called to my heart, and my heart answered. Their kiss was soft and full of promise, not just for the passion they'd share that night, but for the lifetime of love they'd build together. Later, as Marcus slept beside her, Nia opened her laptop and began typing the final chapter of her second book. The words flowed like water. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. I disagree. Justice is a dish best served with purpose. When we transform our pain into power, our trauma into triumph, we don't just heal ourselves, we heal the world. The notification counter on her app showed 10.7 million users worldwide. 10 million women who'd found their voice, their strength, their way out of darkness. 10 million stories that started with silence and ended with power. What's your story of transformation? How did you turn your greatest challenge into your greatest strength? Share it in the comments. The world needs to hear from you. Outside her window, dawn was breaking over Charlotte, painting the sky in shades of hope. And in her heart, Nia Washington finally felt free. The end. Don't forget to like this video if Nia's story inspired you. Subscribe for more powerful stories of transformation, and share your own experiences in the comments below. Your story matters, and someone needs to hear it today.